All right, so we've just hit 1 o'clock in the UK, and while everyone is still coming in, I would just like to thank those that are here already very much for tuning in to this week's webinar Wednesday, How to Make Gen Z Your Brand Bestie with 10 Insights. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Stephanie Fox from the Network One, and I'll be moderating this webinar. We've also got Julian Boulding on the call, who's available to help as well if you need him. So very quick housekeeping. We're doing a 5-minute intro now, followed by a 35-minute presentation, and we will also have a 15-minute Q&A. So the main session will be finished by 2 o'clock London time. Any questions, please send them in the Q&A at the bottom of the screen, or you can send them directly to me. And we are currently recording this webinar, so no need to take notes if you prefer not to. And we'll distribute the recording to everyone afterwards so you can share with anyone who wasn't able to make it live. Thank you very much. So now I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker, Kirsten Hazard. Kirsten is a generational thought leader and senior strategist at Barrett Hoffer from the US. Today, Kirsten will be shedding some light onto Gen Z. She'll let us in on 10 research-backed insights for brands that want to turn this infamously elusive generation into brand besties. So without further ado, I will now turn over to Kirsten.
Incredible. Thank you so much for having me, Stephanie, and the Network One. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Barrett Hoffer is a full-service creative agency based out of San Francisco, and our clients really run the gamut from tech to healthcare to QSR to B2B, but no matter the industry, I am consistently diving into the deep end of culture, finding obscure references and turning them into specific opportunities to engage with Gen Z for our clients. I am a Gen Z, so this report was a whole lot of codifying the trends that I'm breathing, and really was an exercise of looking in the mirror and reflecting on what resonates most deeply with my generation, which I believe is really critical work. A study came out of Adweek just last week, I believe, that said 99% of Gen Z will immediately skip ads. So it's imperative and clear that a new approach is needed. And I believe a first and critical step is deepening our understanding of the nuances of Gen Z. So with that, we have 10 research back insights to share with you today. And my hope is that these can spark something for you with your businesses, with your brands to more deeply engage with my generation. To inform this, we poured through all of the syndicated research. I'm sure many of you have a lot of these international sources. We also conducted a lot of desk research through publications and research houses. But I think what really sets this report apart is the level of social listening and speaking with Gen Z that we did. So we were mining in niche communities and looking for those golden nuggets of social chatter. And we also conducted proprietary research with our partners at Vital. Vital, they have ambitions to expand internationally, but now are US based. They have this innovative panel of a couple hundred Gen Zs across the United States. And they have that you have the ability to engage with Gen Z throughout the creative process. So you can identify a cohort within their panel that's relevant to your business use case. And from the insight and ideation phase all the way to execution and activation, you can continue to engage with the exact same cohort to ensure that as your creative evolves, it is still appealing to and resonating with Gen Z. And would love to field questions on that either at the end or after. So with that, let's get into it. And I really want to make this presentation as interactive and engaging as possible. So we have a few questions peppered throughout, and we're going to start with one to get us warmed up. So I want to play, can you guess the percentage? There should be a chat box feature somewhere down here. If you can open that up and let me know, what percentage of Gen Zs do you think have started or intend to start their own business? What percentage of Gen Zs? I'm not sure I can see the chat box, so I'm just going to keep going, but have an answer in your head. The percentage is nearly 2/3 of American Gen Zs have started or intend to start which is exceptional when you look at the current workforce today. 16% are entrepreneurs. So we see this very strong entrepreneurial mindset in Gen Z, and some are calling them the most entrepreneurial generation in the history. So that leads us into our first trend, that Gen Z is redefining the work hustle. So we're seeing more and more recent college graduates are flipping the career paradigm and pursuing entrepreneurship rather than entering the corporate world. And these stats are pretty astounding, that 66% of Zs consider the 9 to 5 concept a nightmare. 90% believe that breaking the mold is more important than stability. And so the same incentives, the same business as usual procedures are not resonating with or working with Gen Z. And even if they're not pursuing entrepreneurship, we see side hustles or the gig economy as commonplace. So for Zs, it's all about flexibility, it's all about passionate and purpose-driven work above all. And some of the side hustles I've seen, I don't know if anyone knows a Gen Z in their life that crochets or knits, but there's been an exceptional boom. A lot of my friends are monetizing the crafts that they're creating, the wearable crafts, I should say. My brother also works in the music industry, and if anyone's been on Spotify, you might have seen the kind of visual album covers that happens, and he helps up and coming artists with that using AI. So it's about finding how can you monetize the things that make you happiest, and how can that help you live a more authentic and fulfilling life. This chart here is from an international pool of, I believe, about 44 countries. And you'll see that Gen Z identifies less with work as a sense of their identity. And so there's this trend going around called my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5. And I think this really epitomizes what we're seeing here, that Z's don't care about what you're doing in your 9 to 5. That's a snore. That's great. You're exchanging your time for money. It's what you're doing in all of the hours around your corporate service in your 5 p.m. to your 9 a.m. that make you the happiest and that they care about. So Gen Z doesn't want to be held hostage by the corporate world. They see it as a toxic culture that hurts society's collective mind state and can put profit over people. So if the companies they're working for aren't invested in their personal journey outside of their corporate service, then they don't want any part of it. We have a couple videos throughout, so I'm going to play this one now that I think does a great job of describing this trend.
I'm looking for a yellow bone, long hair star, thick in the hips, come get in my car.
So I hope that is a sign for each of you to book your 2-week European vacation immediately for this year. And I think in this trend, how can we support Gen Z and empower their niche interests along this path towards self-actualization? Gen Z also have pristine bullshit detectors. They are so quick to roll their eyes at brands try hard or pick me behavior. And they're really quick to call things how they are, which is cringe or suspicious. We have another game here. I would love for you to participate and let me know, what does capping mean? Just one word, what does capping mean? And while you put in your answers to the chat, I'll kind of describe this viral tweet that uses capping. So they're describing a Drake song, Child's Play, which is him talking about why you always fight with me at cheesecake, if that rings a bell with anyone. He's saying that he gives Chanel out so easily, it's like a hug. And this man said bro wasn't capping. It went absolutely viral. Uh, what do we think it is? So I can't see the chat, but capping means lying. So why is this here? It's Gen Z knows when you're capping, Gen Z knows when you're lying, and they do even when you may not know. They're digital natives. They grew up online. They're really quick to sniff out false promises and see through businesses' capitalism. So this is where we see greenwashing, We see pink washing. Every June, every Pride Month, we see corporate America put their logos with the Pride flag and profit off it. And so Gen Zs are really sensitive to this. And I think it's easy to say, oh, Gen Z thinks everyone's fake. But it's really that they see through brands. They see through the language and take it as turn off signals. And I think these stats speak a lot to this, that 78% of Gen Z believes brands are all talk and no action. And only 8% of Gen Z feel strongly that brands understand their generation, which is a really sad statistic and shows that there's a huge disconnect between brands and where Zs are today. And so they call your bluffs, they call your bullshit, and brands should really only be speaking if they can authentically bring a seat to the table and back up what they're communicating. And they also need to identify what tangible value they're actually bringing to Gen Z's lives. Because if you can't describe it, then Gen Zs are going to ignore it. While Zs are really quick to call out bullshit, they also are challenging systems. So they don't take things at face value. They have really high expectations that they expect to be met, and they're not afraid to use their voices to do so. So we see them holding people, brands, and businesses to a very high standard. They're not afraid to pick a bone with corporate skeletons or to critique oppressive systems. And we see this across the board. Recently, Zara had big controversy with their storefronts that were looking like wartime, and they had wartime elements and inspiration. Brandy Melville infamously has one size fits all. This has come under fire with the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp trial that was really sensationalized across the United States and the world last year. A lot of companies were like, oh, this is a fun cultural moment that we can jump in on. And Gen Z was like, no, why are you participating in the global humiliation of these two people? So they're not afraid to use their voices. And this future workforce study done by Adobe, it's a little bit tangential, but I think really applies here, that Gen Zs are very comfortable giving feedback to their supervisors and to their peers. So they are speaking their minds. And it's easy to say, oh, sheesh, Gen Z is so relentless. Like, will they ever stop? But it's because we've been taught that our voices and values matter, and the people around us and the business around us must listen. This stat here shows that Gen Z is 3 times more likely than older generations to say that the role of business is to serve communities and societies, which it's not enough anymore for a business just to sell products. You need to go above that and truly serve the people, and not just individuals, the communities and societies around you. So I think it's clear that Gen Z has a type when it comes to brands and businesses. It's businesses that are genuinely working to make the world a better place for everyone around them. So is there a way for you to proactively address the social concerns of Gen Z, or amplify their causes and help them on this path? I think there's no shortage of reports that will tell you that Gen Z cares about sustainability and the climate crisis. The media has certainly dubbed us as the sustainable saviors, but if you look under the hood, why are fast fashion brands like Shein and Boohoo experiencing explosive growth? And then when you actually talk to Gen Z, 90% of them admit to buying from a fast fashion retailer, and 42% of them say that they don't even know what makes their own clothes sustainable. And so when I'm talking about fast fashion, I'm going to play this video for you here. So So just so many so many clothes on a weekly or monthly basis that you don't wear frequently. And Gen Z says that sustainability is a priority, but then there's this voracious fast fashion consumption happening. And so it's clear that the aspiration is not meeting ability, and it's because they're not the socioeconomic powerhouses individually yet to fund an expensive, sustainable habit. We have another game. I want to ask you, what do these two have in common? We have Greta Thunberg on the left and Kylie Jenner on the right. I'm going to try again and see if I can see this chat. I don't think I can, but I want you to answer to yourself, what do these two have in common? It's not just that they're both wearing pink, it's that they are both Gen Z. Greta's 20 and Kylie's 26, and they're both Gen Z icons. And I think taking a look at them does a really good job of explaining the nuances in Gen Z's values. So while Greta Thunberg is sailing across the Atlantic and holding countries accountable for the climate crisis, she really is the poster child of those past two trends. Kylie Jenner, meanwhile, is flying 2 miles across LA in her private jet, full of clothes, her entire wardrobe that she'll only wear once, and then Shein and Boohoo eat it up and make millions of copies in Gen Z purchases. And so while the media has deluded itself into saying that we're the environmental saviors, and I don't want to say deluded, I do hope we are, there is this fast fashion engine that Gen Z is driving. And so why is a shameful Shein splurge not so shameful? We're seeing this shift of responsibility from the individual towards corporations. Gen Z recognizes that their impact is a drop in the ocean compared to the outsized impact of corporations, and they're holding them responsible. But at the same time, they can't help acutely feeling like they are responsible for the inequalities happening in society. So we talked to Soraya, she's one of those vital panelists, and she said it feels up to us to undo all the problems of humanity. It feels really personal, but we saw aspiration is not meeting ability, and so it's not achievable for Gen Z. So how can brands make sustainability more accessible? How can brands empower Gen Z to make a difference? We just saw Coldplay released a really beautiful sustainability report. If you haven't seen it, I recommend Googling it right now. And they clearly are outlining everything that they are doing as a business, both on tour and off, sustainably, and how fans can interact with that and participate. And this is really powerful. This recent survey from Canvas 8 revealed that UK Gen Zs, they respect brands more if their DE and I and sustainability initiatives are community-led. So how can you bring Zs under the folds and have them help with sustainability initiatives? Next, we're seeing that Gen Zs are reusing, and recycling the past. They are obsessed with the 90s, obsessed with the 2000s, despite being born just a few years later. And we were calling this trend the Y2K movement. And I have another video here. It's a little small.
When I met you in the summer, to my heartbeat sound, we fell in love.
So if you can't read it, it says, when I say I miss 2014, but I was literally 8. And so we see this happening where there's this yearning for past decades that literally just happened. And now we have another game, which are the elements of Y2K. So this Y2K trend, I want you to look at these and think which ones are included in the Y2K trend. It's a trick question. They all are part of this and part of this movement. So I think while it's really clear to see this with products and clothes, it's also demonstrating a a desire, a sense of belonging and desire for this simpler, less digitally cluttered time. And this nostalgia has been coined vicarious nostalgia. It's romanticization of a time period that a person did not live through. And so Gen Zs are so addicted to their phones, screenagers, as many call them. They can't get off this digital hamster wheel, and they're doom scrolling and they're doom scrolling, and they think, wow, it would have been an easier perhaps life if I didn't have this addiction and wasn't so online. And so we see a lot of people now trading their smartphones for flip phones, bringing them back, not wanting the smartphone aspect, but just the essential pieces of texting and calling. And this page could probably be filled with the brand examples. We just have a few key ones here, but brands can really look backward and revive the past for some forward-thinking innovation. So Burger King and Pepsi recently had uh, global rebrands and updates, and they really took from pieces of their past identity and then progressed them into the future. So how can you revive the past in modern ways to evoke feelings of both reminiscence and progression to connect? Z's, having grown up in a self-love revolution, are very self-aware and very proud. We see them oversharing about every aspect of their life, over dramatizing and creating these silly little labels for literally everything. So if you every night are eating snacks for dinner, that is a-okay. It's called girl dinner. You can join the club. And Girls' Dinner has also unleashed this whole other world of girlhood and girl math. And there's so many things that have spun off of this that I would love to talk about. We've seen with the Tube Girl, my UK friends, she dances in front of the air coming through the tube and gives no care to this tube full of strangers around her, but that's okay. She's just acting up on the tube. If you're delusional, no worries. You are Delulu, and you're welcome with open arms to talk about your delusions and your romantic and social interests. And if you do something silly like forget your keys at home or get somewhere late, no worries. You are welcome to the Silly Goose Convention. So Gen Z throws these labels on things and then exchanges them as a form of social currency again and again. And while Gen Z really values their individuality and uniqueness, they want to know that they're not entirely alone, that their experiences aren't entirely unique. So we see them sharing to normalize their weirdness and psychoanalyze their trauma together. So some of these, one of them says, when my parents spent thousands of dollars with doctors to diagnose out why I was losing my eyelashes at 5 years old, and I was pulling them out secretly. And I think in the background, the song is Taylor Swift's "It's Me, I'm the problem, it's me." And so it's sharing these personal stories and realizing that you're not alone and that they're hitting. McKinsey, Brazil did a study that found that at the root of all of Gen Z's behavior is this search for truth. I think this is really true here. It's expressing truth, but also connecting through truths, understanding different truths, and unveiling this truth. It's all on this pursuit of truth and knowing that you're not alone. So brands who can kind of intercept these radio waves of culture and speak Gen Z's language are the ones that can connect. Gen Zs are also all about sharing. So it's all about the we versus the I. Of age 12 to 26. So of course they're always learning and learning at this age, but for them, they're eager to find ways around the system. And once they do, they are bringing everyone along for the ride. So we see that dupe videos are going viral, duplications of luxury brands. We see videos like do this to become your best self in 2 weeks. We see sharing side hustles and passive income hacks, and just general tips for mental health and working smarter or not harder. It's all about sharing. And Z's want everyone to eat. They want everyone along for the ride, no crumbs. The same study from McKinsey, Brazil, uh, parsed apart the different values and behaviors of each generation. And I think it's really telling with Gen Z that, uh, yes, of course, they value social networks. Their online communities are, in some cases, more important than their physical communities. And they're also communaholics. Whereas older generations, we see individualistic and caring about oneself. Not that Gen Z doesn't care about oneself, but they are so inclined to join absolutely every community that they can, that resonates with their own interests and causes. With this unlimited consumption style of more, 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 always filling every second of life with content on their phones, it's also transcends to communities and wanting to be a part of unlimited groups and sharing within those groups. So there's also no shortage of reports that'll tell you that Gen Z cares about inclusivity, but this is not just limited to size and gender, but accessibility and allowing everyone to join no matter your economic circumstances or geography. And this is what's so great about online communities, that it can mobilize very diverse groups of people around the same causes and interests. So gaming is a good example of this. We also see more and more online communities like on TikTok meeting in real life, which is this video here. There is this thing, I mentioned the girl trend earlier, this thing called hot girl walks, and girls decided to meet in person worldwide and go on walks together. So there's this desire to be in a community, and how can brands help blur the lines between their digital interactions with physical interactions, or in their campaigns bring local nuances to help uh, support this desire for community and deeper connectedness. TikTok's rise as a self-discovery tool has also been exceptional. You can go on TikTok and search really just about everything and get an answer, from music to book recommendations to fragrance to world news to healthcare, all the way to travel planning. If you have an interest and are searching it, TikTok has the answer. And why is this the case? I think when receiving answers via video, it just feels more authentic. It feels human. It feels real. You can get the vibe from the person. We know that photos and videos transfer way more information than just words. And so Gen Z likes receiving information this way. I think it feels like you're getting a recommendation from a best friend or a homie versus reading it from a dry textbook. So there's really a community out there for everyone, and it's typical to slap on talk at the end of that. So witch talk or book talk or food talk, fashion talk even. And we see this really affecting everyday behavior. So 1 out of 5, these are both American stats, 1 out of 5 Americans consult TikTok before their doctor when seeking treatment for a health condition, which is really alarming. And over a quarter of adults under 30 regularly get news on TikTok. So they are having this sustained behavior of looking for answers on TikTok. And I think while this has been a behavior in the East, it's now becoming commonplace in the West. And brands must meet Gen Z where they are. We know that they're asking questions. So, how can we be discoverable to answer their questions with this content? And I'm not just saying content for content's sake, we have far too much of that, but how can you create something with value that can bring real value to the lives of Gen Z and answer the questions that they're seeking answers for. Next, I think growing up online and sharing online, Gen Z often seems indifferent to online privacy because of the sharing and oversharing that they have been seen to do. But more and more, we're seeing that unless you're a creator or influencer full time, Gen Z is hiding their content behind the private walls of a private account, and they want to keep their lives off the internet and minimize their digital footprint. So we have our last game of the presentation. I want to ask you, which generation do you think posts the most? Is it Gen Z? Is it millennials? Is it Gen X or boomers? Which one? You have an answer in your head. I think this one is shocking. It is actually millennials that post the most, followed by Gen X, and then boomers and Gen Z. So Gen Z in some cases is posts the least out of any of these generations, which is really telling that there is this fatigue of maintaining a curated life that's beginning to be felt. So we talked about that digital hamster ball not being able to get off, and Gen Z is finding it just a lot of pressure or anxious to post, or they just don't have a need to share their private lives with the entire public. And so we see Gen Z saying that they think social media's presence will slowly diminish. It's turning into just a shopping center. We'll see how this plays out, but privacy is being felt as this new luxury. And when we expand to just data sharing overall, especially in this cookieless world, Gen Z is the most skeptical about data sharing, but the least concerned, which means that they're the most likely to kind of throw their hands up and say, why are you asking for my data? Why are you doing this? But if there is a certain experience that they need to, give their email to get into, they're going to opt in almost every single time, and more so than older generations. So Gen Z is expertly navigating different social channels and depicting how they come up and share their lives based on the channel. So here, how can we balance demands for privacy with a desire for personalization in branded and online experiences? Last but not least, Gen Z is the most financially sophisticated generation out of any before at their age right now. And I think a lot of this is just with the breadth of information online. When polled how you seek financial information, Gen Z 75% say that they use online video. They go to YouTube or TikTok first to learn about finances, to learn about why money matters. And so what we're seeing is that while they understand a lot of finances loosely, they generally don't know a lot deeply. So 53% of Gen Z is investing, which is great, but only 31% feel confident that they can explain how the stock market works to a friend. We also see them as incredibly optimistic. 4 to 5 believe that they will be at least as financially successful as their parent, but at the same time, 51% are living paycheck to paycheck and worry that they won't be able to cover their expenses. And of course, that comes with age. They're at the lowest of the totem pole, but they're experiencing these really high ambitions and optimistic attitude despite the realities that they're facing in their current environments. Kari was also one of a vital panelist that we spoke to, and he said, I understand economics, but they don't understand me. And so there's this feeling that, again, the traditional way of doing things hasn't adapted to our current styles and ways of living online. And so he was feeling a disconnect from economics and how they're explained to him. So we see Z's going online, searching for information in these accessible and familiar formats. But what happens is that it's a space saturated with all of these unqualified points of view. People may just have an interest, maybe they have a degree, but they're sharing information and Gen Z is consuming. So brands can enter the sea and bring trusted expertise and what is sometimes misinformation or unbacked information to help Gen Z on their path towards financial freedom. So we made it through all 10 insights, and here we've listed out their implications. In the spirit of not gatekeeping, I welcome all of you to take these slides, to share them, to add your own references, make them your own. And I think really as we leave the chaos of 2023 behind, it's the vibes going into this year are remain uncertain, and I'm sure there will be a lot of curveballs thrown our way. Gen Z will continue to evolve and change just as culture and society will, but it's time to make actionable steps in how we can engage with Gen Z, because if you're not giving them a tangible reason to engage with you, they will not be doing so. So thank you so much. At Barrett Hoffer, we create brand momentum, and it is our mission in 2024 to help businesses drive momentum with Gen Zs. So don't be a stranger. Please reach out, and we'd love to tackle uh, your different business use cases and how you can reach Gen Z. And with that, I'll pass to Stephanie if there's any questions.
Amazing. Yeah, we do have a few questions actually. So someone has said, hold on, let me just pull this up. Um, so they've said, if Gen Z is born between 1995 and 2010, that's quite a big age range. How do younger Gen Zs different from older ones?
That's a great question. And I think with the fast, rapid pace of society today, it's not enough just to group generations by that huge age range. And so you'll see with older Gen Zs, they're being called Zennials. So that in between space of Gen Z and millennial. And that's certainly where I fall and where I resonate with. And so I think that older Gen Zs, they're in the workforce, they have more of that maturity and are experiencing adulthood, whereas the youngest Gen Zs, they're age 12, so they are still living under the house. And so it's very different life stages and life experiences. And I think that's where these in-between generations and really uh yeah, looking at people in those age ranges as valid markers, as a Zennial, for example, are really powerful.
Great, that's really helpful. So someone else has said, so Gen Zs overshare everything. We hear about backlash against non-authentic sharing, unreal beauty effects, photos of restaurants you've not actually been to. How true is this?
Can you those examples were beauty effects and restaurants
Um,
you haven't been
yeah,
to? And
yeah.
then is that with personal
Yeah,
attacks?
so I think they're just saying that, people are sometimes sharing stuff that isn't necessarily true. So, I mean, maybe that's more of a millennial thing potentially to, share a sort of idealized version of your life that isn't actually the case. But would you say that that's as true with Gen Z?
Yes. Yeah, I think you'll see people saying like, "Oh, social media is just a highlight reel," and perhaps there's people that are gaming that to paint a more idealistic version of their life or of themselves. But I think where what we see different from Gen Z than millennials and their behavior online is Gen Zs are incredibly authentic. A lot of the influencers or creators, I should say, today are just taking videos in their bedroom, no makeup on, talking about everything, holding nothing back. And so I think we see this level of authenticity with Gen Z, whereas we didn't see it as much with millennials who might have painted more of a perfect picture. And of course, there's exceptions along the way, but if we're generalizing, that is what I'd say.
That's fair. Thanks. All right, so another question. So everyone has a side hustle. How much is for fun and how much because people really need the money due to high cost of living? Are they totally overworked and stressed out?
Uh, I believe both are true. There's definitely a lot of side hustling happening out of necessity. There's a whole corner of TikTok that is about how can you create a passive income for yourself. I recently saw an article called what were they calling it? Like data girlies, and it was girls that were trying to just make extra cash in college and were teaching machine learning algorithms and getting extra cash or finding focus groups perhaps that you could be a part of or answering surveys. And there's this whole community of people finding good opportunities and sharing it. And so a lot of that is out of necessity, and I think a lot of them are made possible because of the internet. And so they're all online side hustles that someone can do after their 9 to 5. But then we are seeing other people that maybe have more privilege, or maybe both are, but if they're pursuing something on their own, like I gave the example of knitting or crocheting, or someone I know is painting surfboards and selling those. And I guess the examples that are coming to mind are kind of artistic, but there's certainly an ability to create those and sell those, or thrift clothes and sell that. And so the possibilities are endless. And I think that there definitely is, yes, as I said, out of necessity or just to get some extra cash.
Fantastic, thank you. Someone else has said, interested to hear about how to retain Gen Z in the workplace.
How to retain them in the
Yeah,
workplace.
so I guess how to keep them on staff,
Yeah,
how to make sure they don't.
yeah, that's a great question. And I'm certainly not an HR professional, but I would say that Gen Z really values their work-life balance. So really tight constraints on time off. I think that would be a turn off, or just it's really about the environment that Gen Z is in. I think they want to feel heard and seen and respected by their bosses and by their superiors. And so I think more than anything, it's that office dynamic and how their manager is treating them, and caring about their life beyond just their professional life and their corporate service. I think listening to Gen Z and helping them learn the skills that they want to learn, the things that they're passionate about, and so expanding um, the assignments that you've given them towards those passions and kind of letting their growth blend with professional growth, but also in line with the personal growth that they're seeking.
Amazing.
For that
Thank you.
answers.
Thanks. That's really helpful. Okay, another question. Someone has said, "Hey Kirsten, looks like you are working from home. Do Gen Z people really like that, or do they really want to get back into shared workspaces?"
I am working from home. Funny for you to notice. I actually love working in office. I love the collaborative environment and kind of the vibrancy that you can get with people there. And I think a lot of Gen Zs do too. I've talked to a lot of friends that have, return to office mandates, and I think people, especially coming into the workforce in COVID and never getting that office environment, I think Gen Z is learning to like it, but I think that comes with the exception of flexibility, and I think hybrid work weeks is what Gen Z prefers. So not Monday to Friday, but maybe 2 days or 3 days a week. There certainly are exceptions, and there are people that are like, "I will only be doing remote work for the rest of my life," and I think there's a camp of people there, but I think the majority of Gen Z likes hybrid options and going in a few days a week. But it's where these days are forced, and when Gen Z feels forced into something, that I think they get frustrated when there's not the flexibility to
Totally,
accommodate their schedule.
totally. Makes sense. Okay, so lots of questions. Another one. If Gen Z is passionate about companies serving community and sustainability, how are they engaging with nonprofits and NGOs?
Gen Z's engaging with nonprofits and NGOs. I think that's a great question, and I think you'll see certain Gen Zs again following their passions and interests, and they'll be involved with or following certain nonprofits that are in line with those interests. So if someone is maybe taken on to Greta Thunberg and really liking really passionate about how can we help the climate crisis, maybe they're following environmental nonprofits there. Um, and of course, the other Gen Zs might not be paying as much attention, but I think we see them plugging into the ones that align with their interests. If I didn't answer your question, feel free to ask again.
Yeah, feel free to get back in touch. But I know I think that really helps. Um, so another question. People are searching on TikTok. Does that imply Google has a problem? And what is it? Is it not trusted, too commercial, boring presentation? So essentially, why are people, going for TikTok rather than Google?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And I mean, I'm sure Google feels it as a threat. I certainly hope they don't try to emulate TikTok like every other tech giant out there. I think that they just have their own line of search, and for Google, it's more serious searches and practical searches. But TikTok is it has edutainment, is what we like to call. So it's education and entertainment fused together. And so when you're in this mode of consumption, you can find these bite-sized information videos, and I think Gen Z just finds them more authentic, finds them more entertaining, finds it easier. It feels like it's a friend talking to you versus, like I said during the presentation, you reading from a textbook. So it might feel more immediate and like you're getting the answer from a friend who knows versus the internet. Or
Perfect.
versus, I mean, like, yeah, the
Yeah,
Google one search.
absolutely. Okay, amazing. Does anyone else have any questions? I think that's. Oh, another one. How do Gen Z understand the concept of money, especially social media peer pressure? If I suppose, especially if social media peer pressure is pushing them to purchase this and that, but how they understand the value of things in the age of digital money as opposed to using cash?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really great question, and I've actually seen a trend bubble up recently of Gen Z going back to old budgeting tactics and not using their cards, taking out the exact money that they can use for the week and putting in envelopes. And so that is how they're allocating money. And so there is some turn towards cash because they recognize how easy it is just to slap a card down and make a payment, and you might not have enough money money to deal with that. I think Gen Z is very hyper aware of the dangers of social media and shopping and consistently, falling into that trap. But as we saw, there's a lot of financial influencers. And so I think there's a lot of people talking and being, again, this goes to the authenticity and taking down the wall, being really real about the money problems they're facing and what solutions they're taking um, to overcome them.
Perfect. Amazing. Well, I mean, that was a lot of questions for you to handle. I'm not sure if anyone has any more, but I think we are done with the questions. So in that case, I'm just going to say a really, really big thank you to you, Kirsten. That was super educational. We learned so much and really, really appreciate you, sharing all the secrets of your generation. So I'm going to share your contact details in case anyone has any follow-up questions that they didn't. Oh, sorry. they didn't have a chance to share. Sorry, I think I've shared this wrong screen there. Please excuse me. Millennial using tech should be better at this. There we go. Okay, right. So Kirsten's contact details are KIERSTEN.hazard, HAZARD, at barretthoff.com, and that's 2 R's and 2 T's. And you can find out more about Barrett Hoffer via their website. We are holding webinars at least once a month. Our next webinar is going to be on the 23rd of January. And so you can find out all about our future webinars at thenetwork1.com/webinars. That's on the screen there. And just to tell you a little bit about next week's webinar, it's the 2024 Social Media Marketing Trends Report with our friends at Curio. So this webinar is going to be on twice. We know it's a popular one, so we're going to do one 8 a.m. UK time and one 4 p.m. UK time on the 23rd. So all time zones can join live. But of course, if you're busy that day, just sign up, register, and we will send you the recording. So as I mentioned before, to find out more and to book your place, please visit thenetwork1.com/webinars. So that's everything from me today. Another huge thank you to Kirsten. That was really, really fantastic. Very much appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing our attendees at another webinar soon. And in the meantime, we will send you all the recording. Speak to you soon. Bye.